Hello, and welcome to the next installment of Live Well with UCI Health. I'm Gina Grad. I'm from Alt 98.7 and iHeart Radio, and I'm here today with somebody very, very special, and I am going to pick every last part of your brain. Dr. Kiran Sachdev, board-certified gastroenterologist and integrative medicine specialist. Boy, I hope I said that right.
You did.
Okay, I tried to get through those big words as quickly as possible so I didn't stumble over them. And it's so great to talk to you because I was just thinking about how like 15 years ago when we would talk about, the gut, things start in your gut, that was like a punchline. Like everybody thought it sounded funny and it's not real. I have a gut, I have a beer gut. I'm like, no. Really, things start in your gut. Have you noticed that over time people are starting to embrace the idea that this is true and not just a joke?
Thank you, Gina, for inviting me.
Absolutely.
And I totally agree. The gut is certainly not a joke.
Yeah, thank you.
And I've spent 31 years working on the gut, and I definitely don't think it's a joke. And I think it really matters a lot to a person's overall health, digestion, diseases, everything.
Well, and now, and I sort of hear all my stuff through, headlines and stuff like everyone else. They're saying, well, it's very much linked to depression and anxiety and all of these things that we think start at the top of our bodies that do not. So I imagine that your reach when it comes to this subject is head to toe.
Correct. So, integrative gastroenterology it's a healing-oriented medicine approach, and it focuses on the whole body, the mind, the soul, the person, their lifestyle, and how it affects disease pathogenesis. So it's certainly, it merges both complementary and traditional medicine. It doesn't downplay complementary medicine, or neither does it unconditionally embrace traditional medicine. But it is a scientific, evidence-based approach along with preventative measures, which helps to solve this problem of disease, our whole body disease. And all of it starts in the gut.
And I know, at least from my own personal experience in this realm, that the word gut often is paired with the word inflammation. And, at one point I did the send the little box in, the stool sample, you do the whole thing. And I was like, well, tell me how perfect I am. And I went in and she said, basically, your body's on fire. And I said, because I didn't understand, I was like, no, you don't understand. I just happen to have IBS and I just happen to have a history of anxiety and depression. I just happen to have eczema. She goes, where do you think all of that is coming from? And it blew my mind. I had no idea. So I imagine that you're constantly blowing people's minds saying all of these things are related, and I can tell you where they start.
Right. So, integrative gastroenterology is root cause medicine. It really focuses on where the disease is coming from, unlike traditional medicine, which is more, symptom focused. It's more isolated.
Reactive.
It's reactive. It's isolated in its approach to disease.
Right.
So with integrative gastroenterology, we're really getting to the bottom of where everything starts. And where everything starts is where digestion absorption happens. And that happens in your gut. And if digestion and absorption are not happening well, the body kind of reacts to it. There's a whole ecosystem, which is a factory of bacteria, viruses, fungi, microorganisms, trillions of them, which are residing in your gut. And these organisms are doing things that the whole body does not itself do. They are extracting energy from food. They are producing vitamins. They are protecting us against pathogens. They are helping with gut repair. They are helping with repair of your immune system. They're helping with gut homeostasis. And all these creative things which are happening with the bacteria in our gut make us healthier. A healthy microbiome is the way to health.
And I imagine when people come in to see you for the first time and they're not very familiar with this, they go, so what prescriptions are you going to write me? And I would imagine, please correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the prescription, quote unquote, is what you're eating.
Right. What we're eating, and if I do need to treat them, I treat them with herbals, anti-botanicals, but I really do not want to give scripts. I rarely ever give scripts in my practice.
Well, and the way I think of it just as a layperson is that I'm sure, some scripts are important and it helps a lot of people, but I often think of it, I would think through the way you think of it, which more like a Band-Aid. We're not treating what's really going on, but we'll put a nice little Band-Aid over it. And if you get a side effect from that Band-Aid, we'll give you another Band-Aid.
Exactly. So that keeps going on and on and on.
Right.
And it's an ever going, here, take another med, here, take another med.
Right.
By the end of it, patient has like 6 or 7 different meds.
Right.
And we are all patching up their problems. We're not really addressing what's happening to them.
When I was going to my integrative medicine doctor, I often heard the phrase leaky gut. Mm-hmm. What is that?
So basically, the gut microbiome is, as I said, these trillions of bacteria,
Right.
this factory which is functioning in the gut. But when they start fighting among themselves, then there's chaos. So that chaos damages the lining of the gut, and basically the gut becomes more permeable. So the lining gets damaged, the tight junctions get damaged, things start crossing through the gut, and that is food allergies, food intolerances.
Okay.
That leaky gut happens, foods start crossing over, pathogens start crossing over. There's inflammation, there's an inflammatory storm.
Okay.
And that inflammatory storm is because of this leaky gut problem. So healing or repairing the gut, destroying the creating balance between the bacteria which are causing chaos in the gut. All these are modalities to help with reducing the inflammation in your body.
And that makes perfect sense because that's like the motherboard, and it just depends what information you're feeding it. But is it a one-size-fits-all approach, or do you need to look at the individual person?
It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's not cookie-cutter approach to medicine anymore. We need to be individualized in our approach to medicine. We need to be individualized to the person's genetics, to the person's microbiome, to the person's cells. And that's what integrative gastroenterology is. It's a more centered approach where we normalize the gut microbiome, and hence we help with leaky gut and with repair.
Okay. And so that leads me to a word that has blown up the past few years, and I didn't think it had anything to do with me until I was told that it was. Can we talk about gluten and gluten insensitivity and celiac and stuff like that? I know it doesn't affect everyone, and I certainly, like I said, that doesn't affect me. I just get itchy, it's random. There's no way to know. And my doctor said to me, so which one of your parents has celiac? And I said, neither. And she goes, well, that's not true. Mm-hmm. So can we talk about gluten sensitivities and who that affects and what does it mean?
Well, gluten has certainly become a big problem in this day and age. We are trying to mass produce wheat because people are consuming more wheat these days. We're spraying the wheat with chemicals and pesticides. The gluten, to mass produce it, we're hybridizing certain portions of the molecule of the wheat, which is in the gluten molecule. And that's the 33 mer portion to mass produce it. So it's no longer a food. It's almost become a chemical to our bodies.
Okay.
So our bodies tend to react to it differently. If we have the genetics, the HLA, DQ2, and DQ8 genes, then some people develop, 1% of the population develop something called celiac disease, where it is a big inflammatory storm reacting to the gluten, destroying the small intestinal barrier. And those people really need to be gluten-free because otherwise there's a risk for T-cell lymphomas. Another form of gluten allergies could be like just allergies to wheat, or it could be or it could be sensitivities to fructans, which are products in wheat which can cause bloating and gas. And the fourth thing, which is pretty common, which is 6 times more common than celiac disease, is non-celiac gluten sensitivity, which is not an immune-mediated response or it's not an inflammatory response, but these people do well off the gluten like me.
Right,
so I
same.
do better off gluten because I get less joint pains. I get less skin rashes. My gut feels better. My overall health, my fatigue is better.
And you said something that I didn't know anything about. So this is way more about than just like gluten. This is what's being sprayed on the food.
Right.
So the gluten just becomes the vehicle that we're getting all this other junk in our bodies.
Exactly.
I
It's
see.
not just becoming a food, it's a chemical. It destroys the lining of the gut and it basically creates inflammation. Now, people with Sjogren's disease, scleroderma, lupus, autoimmune disorders and other disorders like schizophrenia, autism spectrum disorders, those people are much more vulnerable to gluten. And gluten, once their lining is damaged, the epithelial barrier is damaged, it can actually trigger on their diseases and create a circle that they can't get out of.
Well, I do know just anecdotally about some parents saying that when their kids had certain seizure disorders, taking their kids off of off of wheat and carbs, and it making a huge difference.
Right.
So I'm sure you've
Right.
heard the same
Right.
thing.
So seizure disorders, autism spectrum disorders, all these patients do actually better taking gluten, which is a very inflammatory food, out of their diet.
Do you find that there's any correlation between, well, we talked about genetics, but say like what part of the world your ancestors are from?
Oh, totally. I mean, Americans, probably Caucasian, 1 in 100 or 1 in 130 have celiac. People from like Irish descent is 1 in 40 have celiac. Now they're even saying people from who migrated to northern Algeria and have celiac disease. Indians in Punjab have a high incidence of celiac disease because wheat is their normal staple. And I know wheat is good. I mean, it's full of fiber. It is full of nutrients. But it's not the wheat we ate 50 years ago. It is the wheat that we're making in this country. Now, if you go to European countries, they have different standards in processing wheat.
Different bans.
So people can try their wheat and they can go have a beer in South America, which they can't have here.
Well, let's talk a little bit about something that these are all, it's so funny that everything, so much of what you do contains so many buzzwords, and we need you as the tour guide to really tell us what we're even talking about. I know we all want to sound smart, but don't ask me any follow-up questions because I won't have the answer. So we talk about prebiotics and probiotics. First of all, I don't know the difference. Can we just start there?
Sure.
Thank you.
It's basic and simple. Prebiotics are food for the bacteria in our gut, and they are the most essential thing. Probiotics are live microorganisms. And I'm really not in favor of commercial probiotics to be taken on a daily basis. I believe in a more personalized and a concierge-based approach, looking for gut imbalances, what you're lacking, and trying to fill the gaps. Now, eating foods which are like fermented foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, tempeh, which are both pre and probiotics, are probably healthy for you. But otherwise, you can get, I favor more, prebiotics, foods which are insoluble fibers, foods which are in berries, which have isoflavones. And these are nourishment like the same way as we need nourishment, carbohydrates, protein, and fats. The bacteria need nourishment too. And these are non-digestible starches and fibers which are nourishing our gut microbiome to grow. And the microbiome has both good bacteria, pathogenic bacteria, opportunistic bacteria. They all need food. If you give them the wrong food, the bad ones grow. If you give them the right food, the good ones grow.
So you said berries, which is very good to know, and I've heard that before. And like if you're really interested and you love fruit, like berries don't make your insulin spike, so that's great. Can you give us another couple examples that might just be sort of a catch-all, something that we can have in the back of our head food-wise?
Well, food-wise, my first thing is feed your inner ecosystem. If your inner ecosystem is well-fed, it is going to pay back the favor 100 times. It is going to help you protect your health, protect you against diseases like diabetes, cancers, autoimmune diseases.
All the inflammation.
And so feeding the microbiome, for me, top priority is fiber. And that fiber should be a plant-based fiber. Second priority is eat less animal proteins. With modern day agriculture, we are getting more focused on, our imbalances, more meat-based, less plant-based, and less plant-based diet leads to less production of short-chain fatty acids. And those are magic metabolites that the bacteria ferment the fiber and they produce, and they help to sustain the gut.
So that's the short chain. Would I be right in thinking that that's in the same world as like when we hear about medium chain triglycerides, or is that something totally different?
These are short chain fatty acids, which are post metabolites, or they're products produced by the bacteria fermenting foods, and they actually scurry around the gut. They help to heal the gut lining. They help with gut motility. They help with gut-brain signaling. So those short-chain fatty acids are what we're really focused on getting in higher amounts in our gut.
And what kind of plant would be the best vehicle for that?
So, anything which is sprouted, fermented, these are all the good things. But a rich plant-based diet, which is diversity. The most important key is diversity, which I usually tell patients, you go to the market and look for rainbow color. A rainbow plate gives us the diversity of fibers which we need, which helps to support the diversity of your gut microbiome.
That's a great little rule of thumb, just colorful. And a friend of mine who's a nutritionist says the biggest advice I give to people is when you go to the grocery store, stay on the perimeter. The aisles are where you get into trouble with all the snacks and the treats.
The processed foods, they're full of flavors,
Exactly.
additives, and they're really not good for us. So whole food diet, which is not processed, which is full of pre and probiotics and rich in fiber, is probably the best diet for us.
Now, let me ask you this, because I really hope I get the answer that I want, because I'm not a fan of it. And if you tell me I have to do it, fine, but I'm hoping you don't. Kombucha, yay or nay?
I like kombucha. It's full of fermented stuff, but remember, it's full of sugar.
Well, that's why I was thinking it's fermented.
And it is fermented. It's good, but it's still full of sugar.
So I don't have to drink it?
And so I'm not forcing you to drink kombucha. I'd rather you have sauerkraut or tempeh
I
or
love
something.
sauerkraut. Perfect. So, this is what you do is so specific to, the gut. And then, of course, the gut, we talk about health and everybody wants to be thin and wants to be beautiful and wants to look camera ready because this is the society we live in. And don't get me started on influencers. But when we talk about the gut, I know that specifically my gut, I feel like I have this little inner tube around me. And, I just assume, well, that's what comes with age, back to my hot dogs. But I'm assuming that if I were to let go of some of the, the yummies and the junk food, that even at my age, I would see some of the...
Oh, totally.
That inner tube slim down.
Totally. So I really say that everything you put down your mouth goes down the hatch, whether it is artificial sweeteners, junk food, good food, all that stuff. So eat with intent, eat slowly, eat mindfully. When you eat slowly, you stimulate the satiety hormones, which curb your cravings for food, which curb that voracious appetite.
Right.
And if you eat with intent and eat, to feed the inner ecosystem. So always remember when you grab a snack, go for like a beverage or go plan a meal, remember what is good for your gut. If you keep that in the back of your head and you are being very mindful about it, that is definitely going to help shed weight.
Yes.
It is going to help not just your gut, but it's going to have a domino effect in your entire body.
And you're so right about that too, because, we're so out of it. And I'll speak for myself so much of the time that you don't equate what you're eating with how you're feeling. I'm going, I'm just tired. What Egg McMuffin? I don't know. That was like 3 hours ago. But that food, the bad food, for me, and I can't be alone, I get what I can only consider is a food hangover. Does that make sense?
Yes, that is. Because if, you're eating what you eat is what feeds your body and what feeds your microbiome. And if your microbiome is not satisfied, not satiated, and the bad characters are acting out because they have had sugar and they've had the processed food and they have had the trans fats and they don't have the fiber.
You've given the inmates the key to the prison.
You've given the inmates the key to the prison. So they're having fun.
Right.
And they're saying, hey, we don't want to get out of this gut. She's feeding us all
this
those
is
things.
awesome.
Right.
And, remember a few years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, remember the lemon cayenne pepper maple syrup drink that just sustained everyone I knew for a year or two. What do you think of that kind of these quote unquote detox diets?
So these detox diets, I am not a big believer of that. This is not a fitness diet I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about a weight loss diet, but I'm talking about incorporating healthy defense boosting foods into your microbiome, which make you feel better, look better, live longer. So more focusing on which foods are going to help calm my gut down in moments of need. It's almost like a radio. You can turn the volume up or you can turn the volume down. Right. And food has that power. Our bodies have the innate power to heal ourselves, but food amplifies that power. And by turning the volume up when you're in moments of stress, say you have the flu, if you eat healthy defense-boosting foods, you feel better.
Quicker, absolutely. And I think so many people think of weight loss and health as a sprint. And that's why people go yo-yo up and down, which, as I understand it, can really wreak havoc on your heart, which I did not know that when people are constantly losing and gaining the same 50 pounds.
Well, they're creating stress in the body and they're creating inflammation. and they're going in the diets where they're not eating for prolonged periods of time, or they're just going on, say, grapefruit diet, or
Right.
all those diets.
Black coffee and
black coffee. Oh my God! I mean, that is definitely going to wreak havoc on the gut. So you understand the answer is slow and steady,
Right.
and eat with intent. Try new foods, new experiences. It's a part of self-growth, but choose wisely.
That is so well said. And I really, really appreciate you talking to us about this, because I think just the vast majority of us are just getting around to believing this and understanding it truly. And when you say things like, everything from heart disease to cancer, we didn't realize we were giving ourselves these things.
And that is
so
an
many
imbalanced
diseases.
gut microbiome. When there is imbalance or chaos, there is an inflammatory storm in the body.
Right.
It destroys the lining of the gut, and that's where leaky gut comes in. That's where food intolerances and allergies come in. That leaky gut, so things get absorbed that you normally should not absorb, and they
Right.
create that inflammation, which is not just localized to the gut. So it's not just a precipitating factor for, say, inflammatory bowel disease, but it actually triggers on, and if you have the genetic predisposition, autoimmune disorders
Right.
like rheumatoid arthritis, multiple
Hashimoto's,
sclerosis.
yeah.
Hashimoto's, like gluten and dairy, are two
Right.
triggers for Hashimoto's.
Dairy too.
It affects your mood.
Yeah.
It affects anxiety. It affects depression. There's a gut-brain signaling, which is always happening.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, if people, I hit the jackpot. I have the gluten sensitivity, the lactose intolerance, all of it. But
Don't worry, I have it too.
oh, okay. But I want to ask you, people say, oh, don't worry about that. Just take a lactate or something like that. What is stuff like that? How is that
we're
helping?
just pacifying your food cravings and your taste buds. And bottom line is, lactate is not the answer. If you're taking an inflammatory thing, and I'm not saying, all dairy is inflammatory, but certain dairy, especially is, if it's not organic, is
Right.
inflammatory, and your body is not tolerating it, then it is causing reactions in your body and can be manifested skin reactions, rosacea, psoriasis.
So that's interesting. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're just pacifying the side effects, but you're not curing anything that's happening in your body.
And your skin is it's the largest area, and it's the first manifestation of
Yeah,
eczema.
don't I know it? Yeah, because and this is a totally different subject, but I always find it wild that in this country anyway, we can advertise crazy medications right to the viewer on TV. I'm like, whoa, shouldn't my doctor have a conversation with me about this? And so I've seen, eczema and stuff, and whoa, like I wish there was this pill when I was, growing up. But if I'm putting on my Dr. Sachdev hat, I'm probably thinking, glad that wasn't around, and I should probably just make sure my eating is a little more appropriate. Right. Tell me how much water I should drink in a day.
So half your body weight is the amount of water you need to drink in fluid
boy.
ounces. And you need to drink this, especially if you're eating fiber, because fiber absorbs water.
Right.
Otherwise, fiber is cement in your gut, and you want it to help move your bowels. So
Yeah.
you need to have that
Sweep
much
the brim.
water to help movement and motility in your gut, besides other parts of
And
your body.
if people have, IBS, constipation, how do you feel about you take a fiber pill or you add that to your drinks?
Well, it's, fiber to me is key in terms of constipation, but also it's a lifestyle change. You need to listen to what your body's telling you. And the gut is mostly active within, 7 to 8 hours of fasting, which is in the morning. So if you heed to that, circadian rhythm pattern in your body and say, hey, this is the time my gut is most active. I should wake up and drink 14 ounces of water to start the activity in my gut, and listen to the time, not ignore it, not
Right.
go do your hair, not
Right.
go do your face, but go to the bathroom.
Right.
So good toileting habits are a very important part of life.
Man, I have given you at least a half a dozen opportunities to just bend the rules a little, and you are on the straight and narrow. And I didn't mean to try and throw you off, but I was kind of seeing where the wiggle room was.
That's okay.
And turns out there's not a lot of wiggle room, because you're only cheating yourself if you're looking to cut the corners.
And that's the point. I mean, do you want to cheat yourself every day, or do you want to live in this body, well-cared community
Yes.
of bacteria in your gut? Well-cared community is going to pay back, you in like numerous parts.
Yes.
In terms of healing, in terms of your mental health, in terms of feeling better, in terms of looking better.
And as we age, we see the people around us age, and it makes me a little choked up. But we see parents and ailments and things like that, and you think, well, it just can't be avoided. And then I talked to Dr. Sachdev, and you're saying,
Well,
oh,
the
it
answer
can be
for
avoided.
longevity
Yeah.
is take care of your microbiome and take care of, remember, food is medicine. And shaping and identifying the foods that your body needs, it's really important. And those needs might be individualized. They might
Right.
not be generic. So
Right.
again, not the cookie cutter approach, but eating foods which you know will nourish your microbiome
Right.
is key.
Well, and also, like, if you want to be healthy, stay away from the cookie cutters. I know you threw that in anyway. But when we go do something like this, like you said, it's not a one size fits all. Do we seek out specifically an integrative gastroenterologist, and we have our specific diagnoses met and spoken about?
So when people come to see me, one, they're already primed, they know who they're coming to
Right.
see. Knowing that I am a traditional doctor, I've been doing medicine for almost 31 years. And majority of my life was spent doing traditional medicine, but I got so frustrated with the confines of conventional medicine. I really did not have answers to these pieces of the puzzle that I knew were there.
Right.
And so then I focused more on, in my 50s, starting to learn about integrative medicine. And I did 2 board certification in integrative medicine. I also did a year of health coaching in nutrition to arrive where I am right now. And what I give patients is a comprehensive approach, both traditional medicine, if I need traditional
Right.
medicine, and I also give them options of let's fix your microbiome, which is going to help fix your health, which is going to help you lose weight, which is going to help you get rid of autoimmune diseases, or at least simmer down the inflammation and the fire in the gut.
That makes so much sense. And like we said before, we're so used to reactive medicine. This hurts, Band-Aid. This hurts, Band-Aid. The fact that we can go to the source and start fixing it from within and so in a way heal ourselves is just, it gives me a lot of hope, and it makes me feel so much more in control instead of just giving up and eating my feelings and being done with it.
There is always hope.
Oh,
There is always faith. And, this is what led me to where I am right now.
Yeah.
My mentor was my uncle, who was one of the most brilliant physicians I met. And he told me, when you look at a disease, you're like looking at a tree. You can look at the leaves, or you can start looking at the roots of the disease. And that's where, he led me to this path of self, exploration. And also a path of healing. I am motivated in healing the patients any which way I can. I always believe in what people tell me, and I always say, okay, I need to find a path how to solve their problem and how to fix their problem. And I think it starts from within us. That's how, if we fix our gut, we fix our inner ecosystem, which is the largest ecosystem, and that reduces inflammation in our body. It helps with the gut-brain axis. It helps improve our mood. So there's so many ways we can benefit ourselves.
And the tree analogy makes so much sense, because as we fix our trunk,
Right.
and the roots
The core.
the roots just spread to every facet of our life and just inject so much quality into every day. So like you said, by the time people get to you, they know that there's an issue. They know that they need to start repairing on a more cellular level, I assume. And I know that everything is sort of bespoke to the patient, but can you kind of take us through the process of what would one expect when they see you?
So, by the time patients come to see me, they have seen 4 or 5 other gastroenterologists.
Got
So
it.
first is to pacify them, to give them hope,
Right.
to tell them there is a way that we can fix the problem they've had for 30, 40 years.
Right.
I generally do gut microbiome testing,
Okay.
and that gives us an in-depth view of the players in the gut. So imagine it's a sports team. It tells us who are the top players in the gut, who are the bad players in the gut, who are the pathogens, the invaders in the gut. So once I address that, the imbalance of the microbiome, I look at digestion. How are they digesting their food? Are they malabsorbing, say, their protein? And we know like 60% of people above age 50 might actually be lacking hydrochloric acid. And so
Really?
they are not absorbing their protein. And those protein molecules remain in the gut, and they're fodder for these bad bacteria.
So is this all figured out through a stool sample?
So it's a stool sample,
Okay.
and it's a gut microbiome analysis, which
Okay.
can be done through different ways. I mean, it can be a PCR test. It can be shotgun genomics testing, which really looks at the DNA.
How do you do that?
Through
It's
a
a
microbiome
okay.
testing,
Okay.
and it gives us an assessment of all these players. How much butyrate are they forming?
Wow.
The short chain fatty acids, do they have the good players?
Right.
Do they have potentially bad players? So initially when I start, it is, I don't start into the kill phase. I don't get rid of the good player. I don't get rid of the bad players immediately. I actually go for increasing their resilience of
Yeah.
the microbiome,
Okay.
helping heal their leaky gut. So then we can start into the kill phase where we actually get rid of the bad players, and that's by using botanicals and antimicrobials. So my treatment plan might be a 3-month treatment plan where we first reinforce the body, reinforce the gut, nurture it, and then we start into the kill phase. Along with this is dietary modifications, which is to calm and soothe the inflammation in our gut.
And your gut's working so hard. It's like, help me, help you. Don't make it harder for me. When you talk about botanicals, what is that? What
So
do you mean?
botanicals are like herbs, like berberine,
Okay.
oregano. Milk thistle can be detoxification elements. Sometimes I add that. So these are not antibiotics.
Right.
They are herbal anti-botanicals or antimicrobials that we use, and they are for short duration. So these are basically things we can find in our food, but
Okay.
which are a little concentrated, and they work against the pathogenic
Got
bacteria.
it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Dr. Sachdev, thank you so much for being here. This is so
Thank
helpful.
you for having me here.
Absolutely. And like I said, it makes me feel hopeful. It gives us all a little bit of control back. And we're going to, eat our food like medicine and, take the spoons out of our mouth at 3 a.m. when we just feel like get a little frisky. Thank you so much again.
Thank you again for having me here.